When it comes to recipes, a lot of them call for you to stuff one kind of food inside of another kind of food. But never have I ever stuffed pasta into a green pepper before. Until today. Today's recipe comes to us courtesy of the Sprague, Warner & Company, which was a food supply company out of Chicago. And they had all sorts of things from jarred vegetables and jarred fruits to baking supplies to cheeses they had all sorts of stuff. And a lot of those are featured in the recipes in this cookbook, which is called 40 Miracles for Your Table. And they even feature some really weird ones. Like they have a recipe that calls for pineapple that comes in a creme de menthe sauce, or just some really different things that don't even really exist today. But today we are going to be making creamed macaroni in green pepper cases. And the nice thing about this cookbook is they actually have color pictures, so that's pretty impressive for 1930. And we're gonna see what that's all about today. We're going to start by using a double boiler for 2 cups of milk and a half cup of cream, and we're going to let that scald. And after that has scalded, we are going to put in a mixture of flour and butter to thicken that. I'm going to be mixing 2 tablespoons of flour and 2 tablespoons of butter, which is going to be our thickener for the cream and milk mixture that is currently on the stove. So what does it mean to scald milk, you might ask? Well, it does 2 things actually. The first thing is that it kills any bacteria that might be remaining in the milk, and the second thing is that it actually changes the composition of the proteins that are in the milk, and thus that is going to change the way that the rest of your recipe reacts with that milk. After your milk and cream have come up to a temperature of about 180 degrees, mine fell just a little bit short, but that's going to be fine for this recipe. We're going to add our flour and butter mixture, and there's actually a technical name for this. It's a French cooking technique to use this as a thickener, and it's called beurre manier. So we're going to add that and mix that in. At this point, we're going to add in some seasonings with 1 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of paprika, and 1/8 teaspoon of black pepper. So if you watch other vintage recipe channels here on YouTube, you probably already know this, but I think it bears repeating that back in the day, if you had a recipe that called for macaroni, they weren't talking about the elbow macaroni that we have today. It would have been these long tubes of pasta that were in like macaroni, in that they had a hole in the middle, they were round. However, it was long like spaghetti, and you would either break it up before you cooked it, or after it was cooked you could cut it up into smaller pieces. However, for the sake of this recipe, I think you could use just about any kind of pasta that you would like. It's essentially a mac and cheese that we're making and then putting it inside of a green pepper. So I have 2 green peppers here that I've just washed, and I'm going to cut the tops off these and then de-seed them. And then I think what I'm going to do, it says to parboil them, I think I'm going to put them straight in the water that's actually under the milk and cream mix, just to utilize our boiling water in a smart kind of way. So I'm changing things up a little bit. In the double boiler setup, this sauce was not really thickening much at all. And so I decided I was just going to move it over to a pan directly on the heat so that it could get the heat that it needs so it can thicken up. I've got some cooked pasta here. The recipe doesn't actually specify how much, but enough that your sauce would mix in well. I've combined that. I'm going to pull my green peppers out of the water, and then we are going to get them stuffed and put under the broiler for a few minutes, right after we add some cheese to the top. What isn't better with cheese? My conclusion with this recipe is that it's a great start for something more. I thought that everything was fine. I just thought that there could have been more flavor, there could have been more texture, there could have been more. And you really could taste the pepper. The pepper actually had a fairly nice flavor from being under the broiler and things like that. It almost had a charred flavor in places. However, the filling with the macaroni, it just needed some spice or some heat, or what I would like to have done would be to mix the cheese into the sauce to make this a true mac and cheese, and then obviously still broil some cheese on top for some crunch and browning, because again, what isn't better with more cheese? But I did think this was good. I just think it needed more, and so I might make this again, but if I did, it would be heavily altered, and I don't know that I would stuff a green pepper with mac and cheese again, but it was good for a one-time idea. 32 points is our total for the creamed macaroni and green pepper cases. This is going to go in our number 10 spot currently, although as you know, that can always change. Check out some of our other recipes to see what they were like if you are new to our channel, or even if you want to brush up and maybe make one of these other recipes sometime. Let us know in the comments what kind of videos you're interested in seeing in the future, whether you prefer our desserts or our main dishes or our side dishes, or if you want to see some beverages or whatever it is that you want to see on this channel. Let us know in the comments and we'll try and get to those at some point. But for now, that's all we've got this time on Recipe Revival.